Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Firstly, just before we begin, thank you so much for the last one. I don't know exactly what happened, but we ended up getting like 150 subscribers from it. So that's pretty neat. I liked that. Thank you very much. That's cool. I figured that because of the last one involved Victor Hugo and I was doing nothing but shitting on Nicky Rod, we should have a look at how Gordon Ryan deals with it, because I'll either be vindicated or I'll look like an idiot, and I guess we'll see. So this match is Victor Hugo versus Gordon Ryan in the 2022 ADCC World Championships. I don't know if this is the finals. I don't believe it was. I think the finals was actually against Nicky Rod and Gordon Ryan, but I can't really quite remember because it was like 2 years ago. But yeah, let's get into it. So we got, Victor Hugo. If I had to guess, I would say that he's a natty athlete. So look at him. If you're wondering, that's what a natural athlete looks like. What happened to my screen? This is what a natural athlete looks like. You can't be 110 kilos without having a little bit of belly. It just doesn't happen. So if you're ever wondering, is that guy on steroids or is he not, you should have a look at sort of how big they are versus how much body fat they have. And I know it's not as simple as that, because there's multiple different facets to it, but in general, this is a pretty clean look, just as a by the by. So I love this off-centering, like this heavy club in from Gordon. You can see what he was doing here, right? So he's got very good base, right? And he looks like he's leaning, but he's kind of like rotating forwards and pulling down with the club. And as he rotates forward, it makes it very heavy on this hand going down. And so it's not very easy for Victor Hugo. And because Gordon is backing up the whole time, shooting for double legs is very difficult, even though all of this space is open, just because of his distance management going backwards. And so you can see how he's being quite heavy, and he's starting to look for opportunities. Victor is attaching to the one arm, and Gordon's controlling that one arm the whole time, so Victor can't mess with his left arm here. And Victor tries to go for a shoot through. Gordon respects it straight away by stepping back around the corner and dropping the hand straight away, And then he just goes in for a club again. And what I really like about Gordon is he's just not afraid to engage. You find a lot of athletes do this really annoying thing where they disengage and they bounce off each other the whole time, and like you can say a lot of things set Gordon apart, but one of the biggest things it does is he understands that the game needs to progress at some point, and so he's worked at being comfortable from everywhere, not just certain points in the game, and so he doesn't mind engaging even if it goes wrong for him. That foot sweep was great. So the idea here is with that left leg, he opened up the foot sweep, and you can see how that's starting to open up like headlock type position. So I think Anaconda and Das and so on and so forth. A very common wrestling position to go through and lock up like a figure four or an S grip or something like this. So one, and then this arm will come down and go through, and then you'll lock it up like so. It's very common, and you can either rag them backwards and down to sprawl on them, or you can like gator roll in underneath them and use your right hand to dig for their left leg or the opposite side leg and then pull them over the top. So Victor is respecting this straight away, and he backs out. Gordon clubs in again. Now it's very strategic what Gordon's doing, actually. Because the clubbing and the stressing of the back burns a lot of juice, and so the more you can club down and club down and club down, even if you're not necessarily shooting for any takedowns, the more you can just club the head down, the more tired your opponent gets. And they're both clubbing on each other. Gordon's controlling that club hand to the top shoulder. It makes sense to me because you don't want to allow the other person to have control over your posture. And so, again, it's very strategic because the more that Victor's back is getting strained and the less that Gordon's back is getting strained, the more tired Victor is versus Gordon. You see how Gordon's almost lazily attempting these takedowns because, again, he doesn't care if he gets taken down, but he's using it as an opportunity to start tiring Victor out. And you can see in their body language that Victor's much more tense than Gordon is. And even something like this plays dividends later on in the match. And you can see how like Victor is puffing. I watch his belly. See how he's like puffing right now? If you watch Gordon's belly, it's kind of not. Like a little bit, but not really. And so we get into this takedown game where every part of it, every single part of it is a strategy to try and burn the energy. Because again, like, as we just saw, not even Gordon Ryan can beat Victor Hugo in the first minute of a match because he's just too energetic. So you need the other person to be tired because with their fatigue, their skill level drops. And so you need to be, it's like the old Dragon Ball Z, right? The power levels. And once you get tired, your power level drops. And then it's easy to beat you. That's what you're trying to do here. And so Victor's jumped to close guard, actually made it successful because Gordon, again, is very relaxed. He didn't even bother reacting to it too much because he knows that he'll be able to get out of whatever follow-up there is. And this allows Victor quite a tight chomp on the elbow in an arm crush technique. So he's shifting his head to the inside as he chomps his elbow to the opposite direction. This puts strain on the shoulder going in. And actually, if Gordon's not careful here, it could be a submission. But at the moment, because Victor is rotated and his hips are up and rotated, it's not going to work. What he needs is this bottom hip to come up and through as the top hip goes down and through. And he needs to be on this side with this side elevated up and over the top so that he can get the leverage to break the elbow down across his body. And so see how we're starting to go for it. And Gordon stacks up and just very calmly defending it. Yeah, very calmly defending it. And probably a little bit sore, but you can see how Gordon's arm was a little bit bent. So like that, just a little bit. It largely is dead. You can see how he was rotating his elbow as well. And this sort of defense is largely dead now, and he's keeping this hand not on the wrist because he wants to potentially control the hips if Victor suddenly drops. So he doesn't want to get caught out with like sweeps. He's also controlling the hips and the knees from climbing too high. So if he starts to defend the wrist too early, these legs will just walk all the way to the top of the head and then chomp around the neck and things like this. And then the armbar can become quite threatening. So he doesn't. And then he defends it as needed. And then lets go. And then defends it as needed and pops out. He's very, very calm. Now already you see the difference here between Gordon and Nicky. And now keep in mind this match was 2 years ago. Gordon 2 years ago was better than Nicky is today. He's already he doesn't need to be spazzy. Doesn't need to be spazzy and doing big flips and all the rest of it over the top. This knee on the inside pressures the hip. This hand jamming down makes it difficult to weave the heel over the top and in. If Victor shrimps out, there's space on the opposite side now. Gordon's now starting to defend with his right hand there, the other leg. And and he starts, as soon as he grabs onto the heel, he passes it to the front and just starts passing. Now with the knee on the hip, he's controlling the hips, which is what I was talking about in the last video. Is control the hips, don't dive for the shoulders. And then all of a sudden, this looks like a very uncomfortable position for Victor. Gordon doesn't let go of that outside leg. He doesn't want it to weave. He doesn't want it to weave over the top for this near side leg. But he's taking his time here. And he's taking his time, and he's not panicking. He gets re-guarded, but he didn't risk anything big. You see. And now he's just... You see how he's hunting in for the hip. This is proper positioning. The last video we saw Nicky going for the shoulder. This is proper positioning. And it's only a foot difference, but, you know, if your cock was a foot bigger, you'd be amazing, wouldn't you? And you can see this outside hand is floating between the jobs. So we're controlling that priority knee, controlling the inside space, and then he's starting to immediately respect the sweeps, and back out. So it's a very nice display of jiu-jitsu from both of the boys here. Gordon's definitely in the driver's seat here. So once again, I'll start talking about Victor in a second, but I just wanted to reiterate the control of the priority knee. Gordon's using this hand now. His head's going to the inside space. This is what inside space looks like when you're putting all of your weight down and the other person has to lift you up. You won't always get it on the chest. This other hand is doing work to both control the hip and the shoulder as needed. Because again, there are times and places where you do want to be controlling the shoulders, but that's a judgment call in the match. It's not every single time. It's not a universal. Generally, if you're not sure, you should be controlling the hip because it's going to be more useful more of the time. What this other hand is doing is controlling the priority knee as Victor's trying to push Gordon away, control the wrist, and start bringing this foot back in to the hip so that he can either do a Del Riva or a proper reverse Del Riva or start looking to elevate and sweep. But this elbow positioning of Gordon's is very, very tidy, and it makes it very difficult to pull that hand through. And so Victor opts to try and push it, but you see how as soon as Gordon loses control over this knee, he crouches because now the space in here to start pulling the leg through and back onto the hip is smaller. It went from this big to this big. And now, yeah, Victor is being crowded and he has to lift Gordon. And so the only recourse is for Victor to burn some juice here to maintain the guard. And then he lifts Gordon and gets back into a guard very nicely. Straight away, Gordon doesn't try and play a losing position. He just controls the hand and pulls the leg out. And Victor's doing a really nice job with this left hand of his to try and control. But Gordon doesn't want to have Victor free with this leg to start inverting over the top and then sitting the hips down. Very nice. That's a kind of a flex move, what we just saw Gordon do. So he's here. He doesn't want the foot as high as it is. So instead of using his hand, he uses his left foot to push it down. That's such a flex. Such a flex, like using your foot to push it down. Now it's a very difficult position, and Victor could be replacing that knee tall, but he opts to hold on to the ankle because this makes a nice little loop now around the calf muscle. It's very hard to pull that leg out, and so now it's kind of like a stuck in the mud position where you can do technical work rather than scrambly work. But again, like, that's a good decision against Nicky. It's probably not a good decision against Gordon here because Gordon's already wanting to be stuck in the mud so he can do slow technical work. Your best chance of beating Gordon is well, it's a bit hard to say, isn't it? Because if it was easy to say, everyone would say it and everyone would do it. Your best chance is still in these positions, but you kind of have to trust that he wants to stay there because his game isn't scrambly. So there's no real point using your resource here when you could be using it on the wrist to prevent the head grab, for example. Because Gordon wants to be there. So you kind of have to play your opponent just as much as you have to play jiu-jitsu. And so when you spend your time sticking Gordon in the mud, you're wasting time, in a way. It was very nice work from Victor. You can see how, because he was stuck in the mud, using that hand, Gordon could stack in. Watch. So Victor tried to elevate Gordon to the side, but because Gordon is so relaxed in his body positioning, is like dead weight, he's very heavy to lift, and because he keeps his hips low and pushes back against the motion of what's going on with the sweep, it makes it very hard to off-balance him and lift him properly without considerable effort. And now, because this knee is so heavy and in, he's killing a hand and a knee for free, while he's starting to control the knee from coming out and over the top of his own. That allows him to start focusing on the outside leg to either clear it to either side, or push it down, or push it up and forwards, like this way, which is what allows a stack pass. And you can see how, because he's stuck in the mud, Victor stuck himself in the mud, Gordon doesn't have to worry about keeping Victor's leg there, so he abandons the hip and the knee in favor of grabbing the opposite hip. And now he starts to lift and connect and stack. And he doesn't want his head in the middle of the legs because his arm is still in, so there's triangle opportunities. So he puts his head behind the knee, and this helps to push as well, which is pretty good. So Victor has to burn a lot more juice again to try and... it's an exciting scramble, sorry guys. To try and stay ahead of what's going on. In fact, actually, this is probably its own video's worth what I just saw there. Victor has to burn juice to try and lift Gordon, right? So if he doesn't do anything here, Gordon passes around the outside or smashes the knee down. So Victor's doing this good job keeping the knee flared wide with his hand, which is really cool to see. And he's trying to go heavy heel to the ground so his hips can go back underneath so he can be square onto Gordon again with his hips. His head will go this way, his hips will go down and through. Very good defensive posturing. But Gordon immediately blocks with the knee, blocks with the elbow, jams the heel down. And what this does as he's controlling the corner is it makes movement almost impossible. So what Victor has to do is do a big push. It's not technical movement anymore, it's a big push. Because Gordon was on the outside of the ankle, there's not really much danger of a knee bar here unless he leaves it for long enough. So Victor starts weaving over the top, starts trying to put his left knee on the inside of Gordon's leg, so Gordon's leg's like this. Victor wants his knee on the inside as this outside leg goes to the outside so he can chomp his knees above Gordon's and then start attacking it. Gordon doesn't allow this, obviously. So he immediately knee cut passes away from Victor's hands, so Victor can't have control over the leg anymore. And because he's heavy on the outside ankle, he's going down, Victor can't really start to look to regard the opposite side and weave over the opposite side. And if he did, because he placed his own foot on the inside of Gordon's hip, Gordon would just go back around the opposite side and win. So now the play for Victor is try and get this ankle in front of the belly underneath the armpit, while Gordon's play is knee cut, push, step over the top. As soon as he steps over the top, like we see here, Gordon wants to pull the hand. As he pulls the hand, Victor's knee will go out the way, and Gordon will start being able to travel around the side. And now from this position, Victor goes for like a berimbolo type deal. Because what that does is it escapes the hips, right? So we get to this position. If Victor doesn't move right now, Gordon's going to smash down on the hips as he goes around the side. The hips will go flat to the floor. Pass is done, and the best thing that Victor can do is trying to weave over the top. So instead, he opts to push with the hand and get the hips free. And then do like a berimbolo, so that Gordon's forced to start chasing the hips, because the hips were here, and now they're all the way over the opposite side. So Gordon's quite far away from them now. And now, once again, because the foot's in between, if Gordon makes a mistake and tries to chase over the top, Victor can lift with his heel, use his outside leg to chomp on to Gordon's thigh, and start attacking the knee entanglements, the knee bar, and things like this. So Gordon, instead of chasing the hip, flattens out, does a back step, because there's no hook right now for Victor. And it's just, you see how he like does a back step and he goes super tall off the top of the hook. He's right now not in the guard. Victor's toes are here, his knees somewhere like this, and he's able to push. And if he manages to re-guard from this position, it's a lot of effort, and it comes back to like burning that juice. So when we're in this position, Gordon's allowed to, because Victor's trying to step. I don't know what Victor's trying to do actually. Let me have a look. Yeah, Victor's trying to like brace against the back so he can shrimp out, and potentially escape his hips. And then as soon as he escapes his hips, he'd be able to sprawl out. So this hand over the top allows him to pull Gordon's head down as the legs theoretically go all the way out. And he ends up one leg, hips, two legs, head over here, arm over the top, other arm defending, body. And he'll be like sprawled out on the top of a turtle position. So Gordon shuts that down immediately by stepping over the top and stopping the hips from escaping. The only problem is, though, is that he doesn't have control over the mount at the moment. And so if he's allowed, yeah, you can see how Victor's starting to like move and escape. If Victor's allowed to get in front of the head with his hand, so this hand circles in front of Gordon's head, and he pushes the ankle off, he'll take the back. So what Gordon does is kind of like a hip toss. Grabs deep on the shoulder, drives his hips into the top corner, because that's the corner that's going highest. And because Victor has no base and his hips are still underneath Gordon, he has no power to get up and over the top. And so we see him take mount, and then Gordon takes mount here like so. And it's just a beautiful sequence, and we'll watch it again from the beginning to fully appreciate it. It's a very nice sequence. It's like pristine jiu-jitsu. What makes Gordon so good, right? What makes him so good is in every single situation, he always makes the best decision. There's not a time where he's not, where his decision making is questionable. Whereas in the last video, I was wondering, why is Nicky grabbing the shoulders instead of the hips here? Why is he not, you know, like looking for that inside space? Why is it not? Why is he not? Why is he not? Those questions never arise here with Gordon, because he always makes the best decision. The best example is chasing that hip that we just saw. If you want an immediate example, chasing this hip here, instead of trying to chase the hip and go underneath the outside, he does a back step, for example. The next best decision is, instead of allowing Victor to escape his hips, he goes into what's probably technically a mistake. Like, if you look at this position, you would call this a mistake if it was isolated, right? That's not a good mount posture. But it's the best decision at the time, because it leads into Victor trying to take his back, and then Gordon manages to do a hip toss. See how he stepped off the mount in favor of keeping Victor flat. And so like the decision making led to a really good mount position, and the evolving dynamics of jiu-jitsu change over time, but taking mount in that way whilst not technically the best mount posture, was still the best thing to do at the time. And then not causing a scramble, but just flopping into Victor was the best thing to do at the time. And so what makes him so good is the decision making, not necessarily the technical prowess or the athleticism. Even though he's got those in spades, it's his ability to do the right thing at all times, you know. So now, yeah, and now this is over pretty well. Victor just burnt that much juice. Victor just burnt that much juice, and he's trying to push Gordon down. Gordon gets his head on the side that Victor's going, because if Victor gets onto his side, he's going to escape. Gordon keeps him flat, gets his head in the way, pushes Victor's head out the way, and this opens up space for the underhook. S-grip, flare the elbow, underhook comes along. And this looks like Victor gives up physically, and Gordon's just behemoth power. But if you'll notice, the positioning of his hands is underneath the shoulder, pushing the shoulder up. And I don't know if you've ever tried to do a lat pull down with your shoulder forwards, but it's almost impossible. And so the fact that Gordon's almost pulling his hands into the back of Victor's shoulder is probably a lesson for all of us in how to start getting effective underhooks. And then he goes forward with the chest and starts clearing the arm. And this is a very difficult position. He's got a bit cheeky there, but like, to be fair, you know, it's a 15-minute match or whatever, and it took him 8 minutes to get here. Versus Nicky Rod 2 years later, when they're both better than, like, Victor was better than he is right now. And Nicky's better than he was at this day. You know, like, 2 years of studying what Gordon does, and he still can't take mount because he keeps on fucking up the decision making. And so now this is just a classical, really heavy double unders. I didn't actually see what happened for Gordon to get the second underhook. Let's have a look. So he's kind of just relaxing. Yeah, nice. That's clean. Victor's making a big mistake right now. So one of my students does this a lot, where he tries to frame to make space for your head to breathe when I have an underhook on him and mount. And this is what allows the second underhook to start coming in. Like this type of frame. This doesn't accomplish anything except for opening your elbows and allowing the underhooks to come in, and you just lose horrendously badly from here. What you need to be doing, if you're in Victor's position, is you need to be getting one shoulder higher than the other, despite how hard it is. You need to be framing on the hips as best as you can. Don't underestimate how badly you're losing down in the bottom of mount. But like, you don't frame on the face, because that makes you insta lose. You know, you're better off slow losing than you are insta losing, right? Because slow losing gives you more chances to get out. So you shouldn't be trying to frame on the armpit to try and get this elbow back in. Instead, you should be framing on the hips and using the power of your legs to lift your hips, lift your shoulder, push the other person so you can jam this elbow back in for the space provided. But I don't think all of these high-level guys really know how to do that, because they're probably never underneath mount anymore. So they have no idea how to defend it. And like, Victor almost gave the underhook there, you know. Like, it looked like he almost gave it for free. Yeah. It looks like he put himself into the underhook rather than Gordon doing anything. And now with the double unders, this is a very difficult position. And so the match goes on. There's not really much to say here. This is just cooking. Victor's trying to escape, but they're both just breathing. And Gordon's breathing easier than Victor is, you know. So, sorry, there is something to say here. Because of this mistake with his elbow, we'll back up again a second. Where are we? Victor gives, he just like gives the elbow across the center line because it's more comfy, because the pressure going down is heavy. So he gives the elbow. Gordon then works this elbow past the center line of his body. Watch. You see how he's starting to work the underhook deeper across. What have I done? What have I done? Here we go. He starts to, sorry about that guys. He starts to work the underhook deeper across the body and this underhook deeper under the head. And you see how he's forcing Victor to go to one side. Because Gordon has double unders in mount, this is perfectly valid even if he gets caught in a half guard. Because a half guard's no longer a guard, it's the first hook of a back control. And so it doesn't matter to him, and he needs to make progress. So he's starting to make progress by pushing Victor across the center line. And now that's very, very uncomfortable, and you can see how Victor's starting to almost posture up just a little bit with his hips to alleviate the pressure. Or he gets on his side to alleviate the pressure in his shoulders and create breathing room. And so it's very difficult, and you can see how Gordon's starting to really force him to his left side there. And now, yeah, Victor's trying to frame on the face, but it really doesn't do much. If Gordon lets this go, it's not because Victor did well, it's because Gordon decided to. He gets told off for pushing on the face. And now this is a very detrimental position. Gordon goes gable underneath the far side, using his chest to keep the elbow in place across the center line of his body. Victor's elbow is over here. Started off here. Gordon positioned himself and worked so that it was across. Now if he goes heavy and low and flattens Victor out again, it'll be a mat tap for sure. But there's all types of threats here now, like armbar threats. If Gordon steps his knee up around the corner, inverts this leg so the heel comes up to the head, that's an armbar attempt. He can let Victor have the hook if he wishes. He can take a gift wrap. He can flare this elbow, his right elbow, so Victor goes flat, or he can keep on working Victor to his belly. And you see how Victor's having to use a bunch of effort now to stay in the fight. It's cooking him. So if Gordon goes for the gift wrap, because that's the best thing that he can do, but Victor does a good job of immediately shrimping, getting the hands back in the way. So it is difficult. Now Victor, I love what he's doing. He's not just sitting and waiting, he's actually trying to defend. Lots of little movements is better than one big movement in terms of defending a top position player. He gets the leg back. But again, Gordon's just cooking. They're just cooking him flat, cooking him heavy. And you can see how he's trying to keep the pressure on, start flaring Victor back to his back, and causing Victor to start using more effort. The next thing I will say for Gordon is that, like I've said before, he comes across as autistic, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I mean that he literally seems like he's on the spectrum to me, which again makes sense because everyone at the top level of anything is on the spectrum. It just becomes a hyperfixation. But if you look in his eyes, like here, it looks like he's thinking about the best way forward. He's not just trying shit. So again, the reason why I find Nicky Rod boring as fuck is because he doesn't really think about jiu-jitsu. He just like does jiu-jitsu, and then eventually it'll work for him. And he goes, I'm in this position, that means I have to do this. And then it's like the most basic pattern recognition possible, and I don't know how he got to a high level with it. Whereas Gordon goes, you can see on his face, all right, so Victor has my leg, he's got an underhook on my leg, I've got my hands in place, he's getting on his side, I don't want him to do that, I gotta be heavy. What's the best way forward for me? What would happen if I put my hand on his hip versus where it is right now? What would happen if I take my right hand out, try and scoop on his head? What would happen if I put my head on the inside? And he's analyzing like this, and this is how you start getting really good at jiu-jitsu on a technical sense and a problem-solving sense, because it leads to really good body positioning and really good internalized feeling of jiu-jitsu. And this is how you end up beating these guys. And so you see how he tries something and then reanalyzes it and goes, no, that didn't really feel right. And then he goes, oh, should I hold on? Didn't feel right. So I'm going to pull his hand further through and then put the hand on the mats in case Victor starts doing a big bucking fitting, and I'm going to start leveraging him sideways. Like he's analyzing the shit out of the situation as he's going, rather than just relying on muscle memory. And you see how Victor felt like it wasn't working, but because Gordon analyzed it, he recognized that the way he had it was the best position, and there's going to be a slow degradation for Victor over time, so that when Victor suddenly starts to go and turn in, Gordon's already set for controlling the hips. And then you see how all of a sudden that big scrambly movement gets shut down. And now, because Gordon's on the hips, this is what I think Nicky Rod thought he was in, that type of position. Gordon is on the hips now. He's not, his bum isn't out here somewhere. Again, foot of difference makes a big difference for a world record. Because he's on the hips, he can now start reaching for the crossface, because he doesn't want Victor to start scooping in underneath for like a deep half guard with his right hand underneath the thigh, or leg entanglements and so on and so forth. So he takes a shallow crossface and controls the bottom shoulder, because if he flares his elbow, turns Victor's head and pulls the shoulder back through, Victor starts to flatten out, Gordon starts to win. And then immediately he feels the priority knee, Nicky, the priority knee, and he controls it. Immediately. And you see how he's not allowing Victor to get in closer with the crossface. So right now, so he Gordon here makes a mistake, or has inaccuracies in his play, or doesn't put as much physicality in as he should have, really, and allows Victor in. But his left hand were doing work, keeping Victor away as well as controlling that priority knee. And now that Victor's in, Gordon postures and goes heavy and low. So he gets pulled forwards. And then so he stops himself from getting pulled further forwards, or makes the situation very, very difficult. Crossing your feet here as well, if you're ever in a deep half, is an amazing way to stop leg locks. Like, the leg entanglement gets shut down if you just cross your feet. And so what this allows for is that even though Gordon wasn't able to stop Victor from coming in, he can now post out and be heavy in case Victor wants to heave him forwards and try and leg entangle. And then he can just be heavy low and then make Victor carry him again while he's resisting with the backward force. And so Victor feels this and tries to back out, and straight away Gordon's driving in again. And it's a very nice sequence, because as Victor goes out, you can see how Gordon lengthens. And so it's very hard. And this is exactly the same trap that Nicky was falling into, trying to pull the head forward. But in this case, Gordon knows what he's doing, and he's not using it to try and stop Victor from moving out per se. He's using it as a way to drain Victor's energy. And so you can see how he goes, I'm going to resist, just enough until you're tired, and then I'm backing out. I'm backing out straight away, and I'm not playing this game. And then all of a sudden your back muscles are burning and you got no reward for it. And straight away, coming in again. And you can see how Gordon's not allowing any breathing room at all. Straight away, he's trying to pass the guard, step over the legs so he can get back to the hip line. As soon as he gets back to the hip line, you see how he's controlling the hips and he's controlling the priority knee. this is the correct positioning, what you should be doing when your hips are so disconnected from the other person's. And as he circles around the outside, Victor will be forced to bring this foot in and place the foot on the hip, which is what allows for the knee cut, which is what allows for Gordon's hips to get closer to Victor's, which is what allows for grabbing the head. And you can see how he's stepping through onto the... That was a beautiful, beautiful step through. So yeah, he's stepping... very big fan of stepping over those hooks, and I've never really seen that before. And it makes a bunch of sense, because why would you deal with pushing through them when you can just step over the top? There was a big gap in the between. Victor wasn't controlling the ankle, so I'll just step through the middle. Cheers. Because he's controlling the outside leg, there's not really much Victor can do to stop this heel from going to the ground and getting a knee bar. And straight away, Gordon's not trying to settle this position, because he knows that it's too hard to settle the position when he's not low, and Victor will just shrimp out or push him away. So he circles around to north-south and just sits down. Even though this looks like a bit of a weird angle, and Victor could start going, because Gordon's hunting in for the underhook here, like the arm. Even if Victor rolls to his belly and sits Gordon's hip down, Gordon go heavy forwards now with his head and chest, and it makes it very difficult. Yeah, and you can see how, because he's now on top again, it's just a whole bunch of burning Victor's energy. And I love controlling this hip line. Victor wants to go up and over the top with his top hip, so Gordon goes through and pulls it back. And now it's a very difficult position. It slows Victor down enough that Gordon can get on the back. And so everyone would be saying, like myself included, stepping through into like an S mount type position, where you're allowing the other person to pull your heel through to sit your hip down, is not necessarily the best. But again, Gordon is, well, better than me, so he knows what he's doing. Because he's slowing that hip down, it becomes all right. And because he's so forwards over the top of that hip, it becomes all right. And now you can see he's like really leaning backwards to get the hip back on the floor, which is what allows the knee to pop out just a little bit. As soon as this happens, Victor goes back to his knees. But because Gordon's so over the top, he can now spin around the top and start hunting for the other side, meaning that any danger of his hip getting sat down because Victor's pulling through has been mitigated. So you end up in a crucifix at best, basically. So Victor lets it go. Gordon starts taking his back. And Victor tries to stop that mount attempt, but again, because Gordon ends up with the double unders, he can just leverage his elbow through and then pull the leg through. Very hard to stop in no-gi, especially when you're slippy. Just walks his heels through, takes mount again. Dominating performance. Is not even close, you know. Not even close. Now he takes mount again. He's going super heavy stack pressure, and this is awful on Victor's shoulders. It's almost like you're getting Kimura'd when the double unders are like so. And then Gordon's trying to take mount again, and he's just draining Victor. Again, it's all part of the strategy. The more tired Victor is, the more he wants to give up, and the more he wants to give up, the more likely he is to give up in a subtle way. Even not even making mistakes, just going, all right, take the arm, I give up. You know, I'll come third, no worries. And now it looks like Gordon's trying to set up the armbar. There's not much that Victor can do. Yeah, nice. Oh, beautiful defense, though. They go into the crowd. So you can see this exact situation. Like, I say that there's not much that Victor can do, and obviously that's a fucking lie. When you have the gas tank of these high level competitors, and you know how if you've ever shaken hands with a farmer and your bones just get fucking crushed, there's a difference between working man strength and gym strength, right? There's a difference between gym strength and grappler strength and endurance. The reason why Gordon wants Victor tired is to prevent exactly what happens here. So as he steps in, he secures it, he gets the lock. This knee on the outside is now not as tight as it should be. What Victor's doing is, as I said before, I really like his defense to things because he never just sits and waits until the last minute to defend. He's defending it early. And because he's defending it early, because he's getting on his side, as Gordon starts to sit sideways, which is actually a mistake, he allows Victor to sit up. And this burns so much juice. It burns so much juice for Victor. Now, Victor has to get this elbow to the floor because he needs the leverage on the floor, which is what allows Gordon to pop his foot over the top. Like into a triangle type position, but because the arms are so slippy, Gordon loses control of that arm. As soon as he loses control of that arm, Victor's diving it in, and he's going backwards, and there's no control for Gordon now, and he loses the whole thing. Gordon tries to turn over the top to turn to face Victor, but Victor's in perfect scrimmage tackle position. He just dives on Gordon and starts going, and he needs to get the takedowns. He needs to get those points because Gordon's currently winning 6-0. And that was a fun little engagement, and I think Gordon misjudged how tired Victor was. He would have been better off cooking some more, but he loves to go for submissions, and he loves to get those finishes because that's what he's known for, right? But you can see already, like over the course of this match, Gordon's made Victor really tired, so he just does a snap down, and Victor collapses like a fucking folding lawn chair. Like he's so tired, and he burnt so much juice on that last bit. It's too hard, and now Gordon's still fresh-ish, not as fresh as he was at the beginning, but definitely not as tired as Victor is. You can see how Gordon's trying to up the pace a little bit and force the issue. Very nice little backstep attempt into a jumping knee cut attempt. But he kind of fucks it up and the top of his thigh hits the back of Victor's thigh rather than his knee. If he managed to place it on top, he would have passed the guard. But that's the way it goes. Victor's doing a really good job with his deep half, trying to come back into this match, and I like how he's not just giving up. Very nice, and you can see how Gordon's going for like a disconnected anaconda choke. So this arm is across Victor's neck. He's got the S grip, and he's just dropping the elbow down, and this forces the head down and in. And the blade of the arm is doing work cutting off one side of the shoulder, and the chest pressure is doing work cutting off the other. Very difficult for Victor here. He might even get a tap out of this. At the very least, he'll get a guard pass. Beautiful work from Victor for the defense. I was wrong again. Gordon comes back in straight away. Like he's not allowing Victor to breathe. He's not allowing him any room at all. And he's just still pummeling that leg on the inside. As soon as he gets it, he squats. And you see how he's not going forwards with the squat? He just goes straight down. And as soon as he goes straight down, it's heavy and hard to move. He allows access to the hips. He keeps Victor on the side. He doesn't go forwards and allows that knee to flare wide, because if he does, the regard happens. It might still happen, but this helps keep Victor on his side, which is where Gordon wants him in order to start putting the pressure in for the pass, And he's so good with his balance and keeping his hips square that even when Victor tries to lift him sideways, he can just ride it out, and it's very difficult. Very nice. Very nice. And this is probably the closest Victor's come to beating Gordon, actually, this entire match. Is that Gordon makes a mistake trying to pass the guard again, and Victor latches on to the knee, and now is starting to look for a leg entanglement. But you see how Gordon's already got the hip blocked. Elbow on the inside of the leg, flaring the knee to the outside. This makes it very difficult for Victor to start doing much with it. And he's going to go into like a 50-50 type position, but this is Gordon's bread and butter from back in the day. This is the first thing he learnt with Gary Tonin, so you're not going to beat him with it. And then there's heel hook attempts, a little bit of a scramble. There's not much to analyze here. They're just pulling the feet out and they're just rotating the heels slightly. And because they're so slippy, it's very difficult to start securing. You see how Gordon's burnt a fair bit of juice as well because he wanted that submission. So now, now he's starting to puff and pant and struggle a little bit. And so Victor dives in. Gordon kicks him in the fucking chest. And Victor dives in again, but it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough. The mistake Gordon made here to make this as close as it was going for that armbar too soon. He went for that armbar way too soon, and it made it too difficult to come back into it because Victor really doesn't want to lose, doesn't want to get back down there. Like put everything on the line because Victor knows if he doesn't get submission, he loses. So Gordon started upping the pace, and he's not necessarily a high-intensity grappler. You know, he's a plod grappler where he just goes his pace and then enforces his pace. And so all of this is just like playing Victor's game now. Victor's in the driver's seat right now with Gordon. And you see how Gordon's kind of struggling a little bit. And so if you can kind of get Gordon to play your game close on that heel hook attempt, then you have more chances of beating him. But because everything's so loose, and you see how their skill levels have diminished drastically, and because they're all slippy because they're sweaty, there's no real threats of heel hooks or anything here as long as you defend even moderately appropriately. Very nice defense. Again, like if Victor manages to jump into an armbar or something like that, that would be an embarrassing win. But it's not really a skill win. So Gordon kicks him away, and Victor's just straight back in on the hip and takes him down. There should be 2 points. Not sure why they're not updating the points down here, but that's flow grappling for you. Victor goes for this very tight last little attempt, but Gordon just sacrifices everything to get out of it with like an inversion, and then the time goes off, and then Gordon wins on points. And so I feel like Gordon should have definitely won this via submission, but this is where he fucks it up. And as he starts going for this type of position, he pulls Victor off the floor, and Victor's starting to move, and Victor's not tired enough. So Gordon should have spent like another minute or two on the top cooking and making Victor really, really tired and trying to smother tap him, so he has to respect the smother tap and all the rest of it. Then he probably would have gotten a victory in a very dominating fashion. Instead, he went a bit too early, fucked it up, and Victor came back into the match quite nicely. All up though, very dominating performance, and I hope Victor took a lot of this away and started really working on the lessons that he can learn from this. So you win or you lose, and you learn, right? It's not you win or you learn, it's you win or you lose, and you learn. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. That's another video. Thank you so much for all the love. I really appreciate it. I was asked yesterday or the day before if I'd like to do a Discord channel, and I was thinking about doing that, so I might post that in the description. That way you guys can interact with me, which would be cool. Thank you so much, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye now.